We are live, guys. Welcome back. So, right now, we are going to be touching on everything having to do with the court case that is pending the collapse of the dollar. Now, touching back on it, we've been touching on CBDCs, everything covering this whole post-utopian, technocratic, new tracked and traced digital currency new world order that they are rolling out for everybody. And this is all pending this one very specific court case that is going on right now that nobody is talking about. And this is with the Security Exchange Commission with a case with Ripple, which is one of the ledgers that is going to be rolled out into this new tracked and traced digital currency system. All of the ISO 22 certified ledgers are going to be used to facilitate all of the global trade, which will in turn leave the dollar useless, the petrodollar useless, sanctions useless, which will in turn have everybody trading on their own liquidity, and which America has none. Okay, so this SEC case, we're going to touch on a little bit of what this case is, what's been going on with it, what are the implications, and how does this fall into this whole post-utopian new world order that they're trying to roll out for everybody. So the Security Exchange Commission is in charge of everything having to do with the stock market, okay? And what they're trying to say, the case that they are bringing about with Ripple, and really with a lot of cryptos, is saying there's a security, which is a stock, okay? And then you have a currency, okay? And there's hasn't been very much clarity in the market because the Security Exchange Commission, namely Hinman, we'll get into him in a little bit, came out and basically said, well, and Gary Larson also, which is the current director, he came out and said, well, you know, Bitcoin is a currency and Ethereum is, but Ripple isn't. And we'll go into a little bit as to why that they're taking this position in the first place. So what makes something a security and what makes something a currency? Okay, so basically the only difference in whether something is a currency or whether it's a stock is if there's any fundamentals, okay? If there's quarterly earnings report, if there's any sort of, any fundamental anything for why somebody is investing into something because they're looking for a return, then you are a stock. If you are just investing in a currency and as a byproduct of things like volume, of things like market cap, of things like, then you are a currency. You're using this currency to facilitate trade from A to B, and you're not under the rules of the Security Exchange Commission. Okay, so these are the differences between what is a stock and what is a currency. So now what's going on in this SEC case? Now they're claiming that the top ISO certified ledger, okay, which is going to be facilitating, who's on the board of directors for this ISO certifications, it is going to be replacing SWIFT, which is currently how you wire money and how it takes 3 days, and know your customer protocols and sanctions, and we have to trade around the dollar, blah blah blah. So the top ledger that is going to be replacing this system, along with those other 6 ISO certified ledgers, the SEC is taking a case against them. And oh no, we got the lawnmower going now. Great. So give me a second here, guys. Sorry about this. Perfect timing. Okay. So the SEC is claiming that these ledgers, okay, they're claiming that these ledgers, which XRP represents a token, one of these utility bridge tokens, okay, they're saying that it is a token and you're buying a currency, but technically when you buy that token, you're investing in the company. If you want to see a return on that company, then technically you're investing in the company, technically you're investing in a stock, so you are a stock, basically. So they're trying to come back and say, no, the price point of this currency, this XRP currency, is based on things like volume, it's based on things like market cap, it's It doesn't have any fundamentals, and the SEC is saying, well, you do have fundamentals. All of this coin, there's still a back end on all of this, therefore you are a stock. See, now what happened to Bitcoin is that they made Coinbase IPO, and Bitcoin isn't associated with any ledger. It's just a currency, just like Ethereum, but Ethereum has a system behind it, but they're not under the Security Exchange Commission. So what I believe is that comes the lawnmower again. Oh no. All right. So now what is going on with this case? What is currently happening? Where are we at in this case? What are the standings? What's going on? So right now we're currently at a point where that guy Bill or William Hinman, he was the previous director of the corporate finance division. And he, along with Gary Larson, are coming out, and they're kind of wishy-washy about all of these and no regulations, and they're trying to say that there's some sort of conflict of interest there. He can't be the director and speak on this for everybody, as if he's saying these are the thoughts of everybody in the SEC, because there's a lot of people in the SEC that actually do believe that they are all securities. Okay, and there's some people that want to be picky and choosy about it. And see, this is how they're sliding in this whole digital post-utopian tracked and trace new cash-free society. Is they're sneaking in the ambiguity of all of the regulations, because this is the first time anything like this has ever happened. So they're sneaking in all of the different statutes, and they found some wiggle room. They got Bitcoin in, which is essentially there's no liquidity behind it. It just came out the other day that there's only like 60% of all trades on Bitcoin is only being done from 3 ISPs. So there's people that are essentially they have found out. They already knew, but if you ask me, I think the whole Bitcoin was a DARPA project that was meant to fail. But allegedly it just came out. For some reason, the Pentagon just released a paper the other day that said it just came out that 60% of all transactions through Bitcoin are based on 3 ISPs. Okay, so if you ask me, I mean, the whole every single one of them, it's a very gray area that they've managed to wiggle in what is a currency and what is a stock, and where these ledgers actually factor in. And what these ledgers do, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, you can tap into my last streams. What these ledgers are going to be doing is bypassing the dollar. If this case goes through, if this one single case goes through, then that's going to mean that these utility tokens will be the new bridge assets, I guess, instead of the dollar. Instead of the Bretton Woods Agreement, which says, okay, no more trading on gold anymore, guys. There was a time when everybody, it didn't matter what currency you were, everybody would trade based on gold, okay? And then with the Bretton Woods Agreement, everybody moved over to trading with cash, and the world got off the gold standard and said, look, everybody's going to be trading in cash, okay? And the whole world turned to the dollar, okay? So the dollar was the liquidity. The dollar was the bridge token. And now they're going to be replacing, if this case goes through, they're going to be replacing this XRP utility token and these bridge ledgers as the new bridge token to facilitate trade globally, the entire world's GDP. Sorry, guys. Oh, man. So if this is the case, if this does pass, they're going to be bypassing the petrodollar and bypassing sanctions, which essentially means the dollar is useless. That the only people that can trade the dollar is anybody in America. Because why would you do it there are going to be some smaller countries that are still going to facilitate South American countries that still trade on the dollar, and they're flying off grid, and so they're still going to be, the dollar is still going to stick around for a long time. So the dollar's not going to disappear. But for the most part, the entire world's GDP is not going to trade on the dollar. It's going to be trading using these utility tokens. That means that all of this cash is essentially going to be useless. All this money they've been printing, the world is not going to be forced to trade with cash money anymore. Those days are going to be over, which means that everything is going to go up based on, if you take away 70% of the use case of the dollar, if you take 70% of the use case of the dollar, 70% of the use case of every single dollar in the system, majority of it's electronic, okay, first of all. So not even just the cash. We're also talking about the cash is just pocket change compared to how much money is in circulation digitally. So if you take away 70%, if 70% of that is being used, let's just say, I'm throwing out a random number, if 70% of that is being used for global finance and trade, then that essentially means that all of that money is going to only get, it's going to be used being put back into federal funding for, let's say, universal basic income. It's going to be given back in places that the more inflation is going to rise, everything else is going to rise with it, until eventually it's just going to be so much cash in circulation that it's going to be like Zimbabwe. People are going to have wheelbarrows full of cash, and it's not even going to make a difference because you know, $10,000 a dozen, and it's going to be a joke. People are going to start weighing money at that point. They're not even going to start counting it. People are going to start weighing it. Cash is going to be useless, okay? The petrodollar is going to be useless. Sanctions are going to be useless. And what this SEC case is trying to bring up, the defense of this SEC case, Ripple, which, by the way, I'm no financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything based on what I'm saying right now. This is just my perspective on everything that's going on. So, sorry about this, guys. All right, let's try this. My lawnmower's going crazy. So what Ripple is trying to prove here, what Ripple is trying to do with this is say, oh man, I gotta get right here. All right. So what Ripple is essentially trying to do with this case is try to say, as long as there's know your customers, as long as there's KYC in the market and there's transparency, that nothing else matters. Okay, in this SEC case that decides on the dollar, the reason why this is so important is because they're not bringing up sanctions, and they're not bringing up the petrodollar. Okay, which is the main reason why the dollar is in such demand. And a lot of people say that, well, the dollar is trading higher than it ever has in the last 20 years. Okay, and that's why the reason why the dollar is trading higher than it has in the last 20 years is because the demand for the dollar is so high. Because when the markets dip, that's when all the acquisitions happen. That's when everybody's buying everything. And if you have to buy everything in the dollar, of course, demand for the dollar is going to be high. So the trading value of the dollar doesn't say anything. All that means is it says the dollar's in demand, which as soon as everybody's investments go bad, everybody turns to the dollar because they try to liquidate. What does everybody liquidate into? They liquidate into cash. So this is why the dollar's in demand. This is why everything's right now. This is why it seems to be that everything's all good. But as soon as this court case gets in any way, shape, or form close to an end where they let the entire world's and this is the thing, is that the entire world's GDP is going along with this anyway. These utility token bridge ledgers are already being facilitated through banks. Okay, the BRICS nation are already using this. Okay, Putin just came out the other day and he's like, oh, we need a liquidity based digital asset to be able to on demand liquidity. He's doing the whole thing, doing the whole song and dance like they're doing over at Davos. Okay, this is a thing. Okay, you have people at Davos, like the mayor of New York, coming in and saying the world's not going to wait for the U.S. Okay, the U.S. has to catch up to all this, and that's the view of an internationalist. Okay, that's the view of somebody that's not in a freedom first sovereign citizen of the United States. That's somebody that's subservient to these international factions. If he was American, he would say, look, America set standards. We can't just jump into something just because the technology's there. We got to take our time. Okay, so they're trying to say that KYC in this court case, in this SEC court case, they're trying to say that, well, as long as there's KYC and there's no funding for any felonious activity, as long as there's no fraud, that what's the big deal? What's the big deal? We're following all of the standards of the Security Exchange Commission. What's the big deal? And this is kind of where the case is at right now. Now with this guy Bill Hinman, and there's supposed to be some I don't know if they're going to be if they're going to be disclosing any of his, if they're going to allow him to testify or whatnot, or if that's going to be a conflict of interest. That's kind of what they're deciding right now. And a lot of these people that are doing the play-by-play on this case is basically trying to say that, well, if it does come to be that the court strikes it down, then the SEC is going to have to settle. Which, what does that mean? A lot of people are speculating, well, it could be a slap on the wrist. They could just make them IPO on the stock market like Coinbase. But it doesn't stop there, okay? It doesn't stop there. What that's going to mean is if that precedent is set, okay, it's not just what happens to Ripple. It's not just what happens in this case, okay? It is the precedent that gets set from this case, okay? If this case gets settled in a way where even if Ripple has to IPO and they're now on the stock market, that means that they are going to be rolling over the entire stock market over to this ledger system. Okay, and I've explained in past streams that what will happen is TD Ameritrade. You'll update your app, and oh my gosh, I'm able to settle it instantly now. Instead, it's not going to settle in 2 to 3 days. It's because on the back end of these technologies, they're going to be using these exact same ledgers to be able to facilitate these trades at 1500 TPS at however much scale it up to. Let's see what we got here. Okay. So, all right, we're live. Okay. So that's a little bit what it's going to mean for the petrodollar. It's a little bit what it's going to mean for sanctions. This is all pending this SEC case. Now, where this goes, how long it's supposed to go on for, it's already been going on for a little over 2 years. Okay, I just recently tapped into this. Okay, it's been going on for a little bit over 2 years now. Okay, and normally cases with the SEC get settled in like a year and a half is the average, but this is a huge case. This is concerning global, and here's a big part about it is that they have there's a lot of these holders. Okay, once again, I'm no financial advisor. Do not take any advice as to buy or sell anything. This is just my perspective. But the lawyer that is representing a lot of these people that hold these tokens, okay, they're saying that the SEC is completely making everyone look bad. It's making everybody lose money. So this lawyer got together a bunch of people, 65,000 people, and they brought a lawsuit against the SEC because of this lawsuit with Ripple. So he is saying, because there's a bunch of important court cases that are still going on right now. Okay, a lot of really important court cases are going on right now. Okay, the Supreme Court just pretty much made it open carry. You got the whole thing with Roe versus Wade. You got this whole thing. They're coming against the EPA and saying, look, you guys have to refer to Congress now. Okay, anything concerning, and this is very important. Okay, the Supreme Court just came in and said that concerning anything having to do with anything geopolitically or trade or anything, you guys can't just give out guidelines. You guys have to refer everything to Congress, and then they'll basically let you guys know what you guys can and can't do. Okay, which on the surface, this seems very, yeah, well, they shouldn't be allowed to make these fuel companies have to put this weird artificial or this weird like plant-based fuel that's not even, it's hard to make and it's rare to get and the scarcity is super high. The EPA can't make them put this additive in it just because it's like a virtue signaling thing. You know what I mean? Like that's the whole thing. Problem, reaction, solution. Like, yes, the EPA shouldn't make these whimsical mandates and fine people for it, but at the same time, we shouldn't be referring these exact same possible potential regulations up to Congress and not have a separation of power. This is them another further separation, or another really joining of getting rid of separation of powers, referring to Congress. Now, what this lawyer just came out and said, that's representing these same people holding these tokens that are involved in this case with the SEC and Ripple, what this lawyer is saying that, well, concerning concerning the Supreme Court, it's not going to look good if it settles and it's getting appealed, because the Supreme Court could just come in and say, look, you guys, the SEC, you can't overstep your boundaries. Like, what are you guys, the EPA? You guys can't overstep your boundaries when it comes to geopolitical, anything that could have to do with trade, anything that could have to do with, you guys can't overstep your boundaries like the EPA. We just made a stand on the EPA that they got to run everything up through Congress. So what this lawyer is essentially saying out of the side of his mouth is basically what the Supreme Court is saying, is that, well, what he is saying, what the Supreme Court could potentially say, is that you guys got to run, SEC's got to run everything up through Congress. This is what they want. They want to have everything run up through Congress. Even though the Fed made regulatory agencies like the EPA and all these other separate factions, these other regulatory agencies, they are now actively trying to close these separations of power. First, they divide everything, and then they bring everything right back together. And now they're wanting to run everything up through Congress. Okay, and on the face value of everything, this seems okay. And on the face value of all these judgments that the Supreme Court is making, a allegedly conservative Supreme Court is making, on the face it seems okay. On the face it seems like, okay, pro Second Amendment, everybody can open carry if it comes to personal protection. But look at all the red flag laws that they are trying to actively push, and they're not saying anything about. Okay, so problem, reaction, solution. So now what? Every single incident is going to be more and more justification for red flag laws. Well, everybody is open carry and being dangerous, so we need more red flag laws to be able to protect you. It's almost like on the front layer of it, it seems okay, but on the back end, it almost seems kind of foregoing of sovereignty, more so than if every state was just allowed to be in charge of their own. Every state has a constitution too. So it's almost like they make these Supreme Court decisions, and then kind of back off of them in other ways. It's and this exact same thing that's happening with the EPA, and then making this judgment call and wanting everything to get run up to Congress. They could very easily do this with the SEC. So now there is no opposition to this whole technocratic, post-utopian, tracked and traced, cash-free society. Everything has to be run up to Congress. No separation of powers. I mean, so this is something that they could call on the case, and it's very interesting that this lawyer just came out yesterday, and he actually just called them on it, and a lot of people think that the SEC took Ripple to court. But one of the other things I explained on my last stream is that, look, in order for precedent to get set, case law has to be established. And the only way for case law to be established is you actually have to go to court and settle case law. So if they were going to roll over, there's a lot of people's money at stake with the stock market, with so you can't just roll it over into the system and there not be these bylaws and have everything be set in stone. That way, these billionaires and these market movers, the very few that there are, at least know that their money is established, that everything is still following the same procedures as the SEC. Because Ripple, even though the SEC is taking Ripple to court, Garlinghouse is taking the position, the head of Ripple, he's taking the position that, look, we're the most regulatory upstanding company out of every one of these cryptos. We want nothing that all we want to do is work with the SEC. All we want to, and there's members of the SEC on Ripple. There's members of Ripple on the SEC. You have this guy that was the this same Bill Hinman, who these disclosures are all about. He actually was the head of corporate finance in Silicon Valley, that facilitated the IPO and the release of Alibaba, of Alphabet, of Google, of all these. So these people are all the same people involved in this SEC, these head corporate conglomerates, so it's all interconnected. There is no opposition. There is more trying to establish case law for how the world is going to get off the dollar standard. We went from the gold standard to the dollar standard, and now we're going into this utility token bridge standard. Okay, I mean, that's all. These bridge tokens, it sounds crazy, like, oh, a utility token. How does it get its value? How does it get its value unless it's backed by gold? First, it is backed by gold. They've already said that they want to go back on this whole gold thing. Now that they've printed a bunch of funny money and bought all the gold, all the remaining world's gold, now they want to go back on the gold standard and leave America with a bunch of funny money that has no liquidity behind it. But the way that people look at these bridge tokens, well, how does it have value if it's not backed by anything? Okay. The same way the dollar got value and it's not backed by anything. It's the demand. Okay. If the only way to go from one currency to another is that's a bridge. Okay. The same way that the dollar was the bridge with the Bretton Woods Agreement, the same way that gold was the bridge forever before that. That's what everybody had their own currency, coinage and all that, but nobody traded at that at large. People had these people used gold. So it's gold is a bridge, the dollar is a bridge, and these utility tokens are a bridge. And even though they don't have to be liquid, they want it to be liquid. They want everything back on the gold standard. They want it to be liquid. But even if it wasn't, it would not matter if the demand, if these regulations, these ISO 20022 global regulation standards from the ISO, the people that dictate SWIFT in with the United Nations, if they change the global standards where everybody has to facilitate trade on the global level because of with these bridge ledgers, that's the only way anybody can do trade anymore. That is going to completely cancel and void the Bretton Woods Agreement, which says that the only way that anybody can facilitate trade is with the dollar. Okay, that's what getting off the gold standard was about. That's what making everybody trade. That's what all these, people trying to get back on the gold standard, gold confiscation, all this other, uh, that's what all this is about. So if this comes to be, if these ISO, which starts in November 15th for the EU, and then it's supposed to be rolled out 2025 or sooner, pending on this SEC case that will essentially make the dollar useless to anybody other than people in the United States. If you take out if 70% of the world's GDP has to get traded in dollars because of the petrodollar, because of sanctions, and now CBDCs come into play and these sanctions go and the SEC settles in favor of, even if it's a slap on the wrist, it doesn't even matter how this SEC case goes, to be honest with you. It doesn't matter about the Hinman deep, if he gets deposed or not. It doesn't even matter, okay? Because at the end of the day, the rest of the world is still going ahead with these bridge loans. There's already banks, and all these head people are behind all of these ISO certified utility tokens. IBM, Boeing, Google, all of them are behind it. Okay, MoneyGram, everybody's signing on board with these things. So if the entire world is going ahead and saying, you know what, we're not trading in the dollar anymore. I know you guys were kind of like big on the Bretton Woods Agreement, but we're not going to do that anymore. So if everybody doesn't even care about the dollar, and the only people that do care, if they're like, all right, fine, you guys go ahead and use your utility tokens. America doesn't want to do that. It doesn't even matter. That's the point, is so that the world can go about trading around it. So it's a checkmate no matter which way this SEC case goes, no matter what. Whether they side, it's a slap on the wrist, they let them IPO. Okay, you're a stock, you're a security, you're not a current. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. The world is going forward with these ISO. Wells Fargo has been training. You look on YouTube. You can look on YouTube. There's all sorts of training videos. How to get ready for ISO certifications. These banks and things like that probably make these people watch this just so they get. Wells Fargo is taking incoming transactions, incoming messages with these ISO certified ledgers. They're not doing any outgoing until 2025 or pending this SEC case. So there's still going to be incoming transactions with this whole thing. Same thing with Citi. So, and these ledgers go, and these tokens, they go everything. Colombia just came out and said that they're doing real estate on these XRP tokens now. You can do your mortgage, every single thing tokenized now. So this isn't even something that's just like some fringe thing. You have Colombia just came out and said that people's houses and taxes are going to be tokenized. No question, no asking about any backdoors in any of this technology. No asking about, is the blockchain secure? Oh well, Ledger and Dissent said that they would come up with $1 million for anybody that can hack into it, and nobody did. So therefore it's not hackable. So that means that we're gonna trust these same people that created and usurped the last system, from the creation of the Federal Reserve to the creation of the Bretton Woods Agreement, Nixon getting off the gold standard, the same people that facilitated that, all these think tanks, all that, they're the ones pushing hard these ledgers that are behind the Bank of International Settlements, they're behind the International Monetary Fund. They're the ones pushing this, And there are people out here that are heavily invested in it that swear they're saving America, that are saving, that are just saving the country by switching over to this because, whoa, it's going to be gold backed. We're finally going to have a gold backed currency now. Yeah, they printed a bunch of funny money and bought all the gold, usurped all the gold, and left everybody with a bunch of hyperinflated money. And this is worldwide. Economically, everybody's currency is messed up. Everything is hyperinflated. Everybody globally is being pushed into this technocratic, post-utopian, tracked and traced, cash-free society. This isn't just America, okay? So everybody's going to be left with their funny money or to buy these utility tokens, these bridge tokens. And if not, don't revolt. You don't have to resort to bartering. You don't have to do that because we have universal basic income. And we're sorry about the inflation, guys. Here's some utility tokens. You could trade in your dollars and get some tokens and pay your stuff. You could tap into the metaverse. You could go into Walmart. Everything will be dropped off at your door. Your mortgage will be tokenized. You could put on your Oculus goggles and go into work. And even though you're not leaving home, it'll still feel like you're going to work. And this is what this is. This is moving forward, and this is all pending this SEC case, okay, that is basically a checkmate. It doesn't matter. The regulations are set. Everybody's being trained in all of these banks, okay, to how to do the ISO messaging. You can look it up. Everybody's behind it. Okay, this is what they're talking about at Davos. They're completely behind these bridge ledgers. It doesn't even matter. The Bretton Woods agreement is going to be done. Sanctions are going to be done. I mean, where is there to go? The only where is that hopefully America gets enough stash of, and here's the thing, is that even in the worst of case scenarios, like, okay, even if the good guys get even if the good guys that want to see, that don't want to see America fall, even if they, let's say they cuck and we don't make a stink about it and nothing gets done with BRICS, even though they just came out at the Beijing, just like a couple weeks ago. Nobody even says they came out at their Beijing summit and basically said, yeah, Russia, China, everybody, they're on board, and nobody locked step after COVID, and everything was all good, and we need these cross-border digital currency. So even if nothing gets done about that, and let's say America cucks, okay, and the only way for America to come out ahead is to gobble up a bunch of these bridge ledgers. If it's the new dollar, if the dollar isn't the new bridge ledger, let's say the only way is to get a bunch, okay, then what? Then it doesn't even matter. Then we're still back to the same plan of getting everybody else on board to these bridge ledgers, because that's the new bridge, guys. We kind of cucked. We were put in a checkmate position. We had to gobble up a bunch of these bridge ledgers, but now we're sorry about the inflated dollar that you're stuck with, everybody. Sorry about that. Here's some of these tokens. You go onto your bank, everything's streamlined. That's what all this whole Bitcoin be your own bank was about. That was all a beta test. That was all. The Pentagon came out and said that, hey, look, Bitcoin's being run, basically 60% of it, by 3 ISPs, and that's garbage. This is all coming out now after the market, after this huge dip. 70-85% of everything completely dips. Now all of a sudden they want to come out and say, oh yeah, by the way, 60% of all Bitcoin transactions are from 3 ISPs. Like, now that doesn't smell a little fishy? You don't think that maybe the same reason why DARPA created all the top social media companies like MySpace, like Twitter, like Facebook, and propped up, even if they didn't create it, if they astroturfed it and propped it up, just so they can, and then come around and turn out and say, oh wait, we want to create the UMSC to fight, to combat disinformation. So you create these social media platforms and then create a way, just so you can create a way to regulate sovereign speech. You know, you present this, and it's the same way that it all ties back to each other. All of it ties back to each other. I mean, the same way they would create this silly currency that isn't liquid based. It's got no liquidity behind it. It's completely speculation based. All of it, everything about it screams the stock market. Every single thing about it. But, well, the only difference is there's no fundamentals. There's no anything about it. So therefore it's not a stock. But then as soon as everything comes crashing down, knowing that it's got no liquidity, it's based on people buying and selling, and who wants to buy the crap that I just sold. That's what it's about. So of course it doesn't have liquidity. So now that it crashes, a project is created to fall on its face. That way it's like, don't you want Big Brother to come and help you with these regulations? And don't you want on-demand liquidity? And don't you like it's a joke. And this is all pending this SEC case. Okay. Um, there's no matter what, it's a checkmate. No matter which way it ends up going. I mean, the SEC is there's members that were on the SEC, 20-year members that started with Ripple, like that are the founders of Ripple, that are these guys that were, I forget his name, he was like with the SEC for 20 years. I mean, give me a break. Like, you guys we're really supposed to think that the SEC took Ripple to court. They're working on case law to figure out how all of this is going to get set for the entire stock market. Okay. When is this going to happen? There's a lot of speculation. I heard a really good theory that there was a couple conjunctions happening, a couple from with these north nodes, with something with Mars and Uranus is passing through with Taurus, and all of these have to, they line up right going across New York City, 1 degree of separation away from New York City on August 1st. So maybe that's when we get some clarity. Okay, somebody was saying that there was the two other previous conjunctures with these north nodes ended up was right around the time of the food collapse, and when this when the BRICS nation came and said basically we them boys, and made their stance at the summit. That was the other, conjunction. So maybe it'll be August 1st. Maybe we'll make a prediction and say August 1st is when the SEC will come. But you're talking about Mars, astrologically, that's not a good planet. Taurus, that's not a very good planet astrologically. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. So SEC case, it's going to determine whether there's no more petrodollar. It's going to determine whether there's no more sanctions. And the only thing that nobody's even talking about it on the board, nobody is even discussing, and this is a matter of national security. Okay, this is a matter of national security. There are these sanctions in place. There are these the petrodollar is in place for a reason. Okay, the petrodollar, it seems so arbitrary. Okay, it seems so silly. Okay, but at the end of the day, it is the thorn in the side of internationalism. They want the dollar out of the way. And at this point, people could say the petrodollar is pointless, the sanctions are pointless, but the fact that these global internationalist factions they cannot stand the dollar is why I feel like we need to keep it around for a little bit longer. Not to mention the inflation, not to mention all that, but because, well, hey, look, maybe this Belt and Road initiative that they want so bad, and them taking over the South China Sea and taking over trade routes and monopolizing world economies and taking over geopolitical infrastructures and being able to cause artificial shortages. Maybe that's not such a good idea. Maybe a tiny majority of the world probably shouldn't own everything. Maybe that isn't such a good idea. Maybe because we have the technology for these blockchains and we have the technology for all of this to happen, maybe we should step back and say, hold on, what are the implications of these stocks, of these currencies, of these bridge tokens that everybody is wanting to push through? Well, know your customer. That's the only thing that matters. Know your customer. There's no fraud. Everybody knows who's getting the money. That's the only thing that matters. Don't talk about this. Don't talk about the sanctions. Don't talk about the petrodollar. Okay. Don't talk about how Russia, China, Iran, Brazil are all coming together and basically saying, we them boys. Don't talk about how about how it's absolutely nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Like, it's clown world. Everything that should be paid attention to is absolutely not being paid attention to. The only thing that people are paying attention to are these one-dimensional issues that are being used for three-dimensional purposes. Okay, like the open carry gun law, like the Roe versus Wade that's going to be creating a welfare state. Okay, do we really think that Roe versus Wade is going to turn the entire country into upstanding Christians and actually going to change the culture? No, it's going to make a complete wealth of babies that's going to be subservient to the state. That's going to need funding. Okay, and it's one of those things. Like I preserve the sanctity of life just like the next person. Okay. I am not about abortion. I'm not about any of that, but it's the culture that we live in that is not going to change on a whim because of a court case. Pushes it actually pushes the culture in a worse situation if we think about it. I mean, sanctity of life included. I mean, and this is just one of the issues, the gun issue, the whole thing with the EPA, and that being okay. It's great that the EPA isn't involved in all these regulations, but now it gets pushed up to Congress. So now we went from, oh yeah, we got to win on this one-dimensional issue with the EPA. We got to win with the gun laws that are basically gonna push everybody into these, also at the same time, these red flag laws. Yeah, we got to win with the gun laws though, but it should have never been a federal thing. It should have been always a state by state thing. It should have never even been a Supreme Court issue. But we got the win, but now all the red flag laws are coming through. The EPA, yeah, we got the win, but now there's no separation of power between Congress. Roe versus Wade, yeah, we got the win with the sanctity of life, but now we're going to be on a complete welfare state. It's like everybody is paying attention to the topmost layer of everything. I mean, it goes deep. It's not just, I mean, these are all the same financial institutions, the same holding companies, the same BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, all these guys. It's all the same think tanks that go, all these same guys are sitting on the boards of all the Federal Reserve, and they're sitting on the board of of the BIS, and they're sitting on board of the SEC, which is within all of these same top CEOs. It's all the same. It's like these guys got like 5 job titles. Each one of these guys have 5 job titles. So it makes it seem like, oh my gosh, you're so, look at all these things, and oh my gosh. 1 degree of separation. That's all it is. So this is all pending this SEC case. If you want to know more about the ledgers and the tokens, tap into my last streams. Once again, I'm no financial advisor. Don't buy or sell anything based on what I'm saying. And I don't know. That's, I guess this SEC case it's honestly a show. It's a song and a dance is really what it is. It's like, I mean, the court system itself is a Freemason ritual, okay? With the whole thing, with everything from them wearing robes and where everybody stands and how everybody speaks, it's a ritual. And this is what's happening. So it would make sense if it ends on a day that is symbolized through the stars and astrology. You know what I mean? I don't think that theory is so that crazy that synchronicities are intended for a reason because they somehow think they draw power from all this. You know what I'm saying? So the whole court case is a song and a dance, and no matter which way we end up on the other side of it, the world is going to go on and do and push forward this agenda. The whole thing, the metaverse, the utility tokens, the global ID, the health pass, it's all tapped into the blockchain. Every bit of it. It's going to be all centralized. And I don't know how long they've had this technology. A part of me thinks that they've had this technology since like the 30s or something. You know what I mean? Because they've actively made steps in getting, the only, who knows when they got this technology. If we're just now being introduced this technology, you know how it goes. We're probably, 40 years, 60 years behind, so if this came out 2012, whatever it was, then we're at 1950 at that point, which the Bretton Woods Agreement, the Federal Reserve was created, the Bretton Woods Agreement, Nixon right after that, getting off the gold standard and all that. So it very well could be that they saw this as an opportunity, that this could be the new monetary system. It could already be worked and chiseled and so I mean, it doesn't make sense why 100 years ago we went from no debt, all of a sudden proprietary Federal Reserve, next thing you know, the gold standard, we get rid of all the gold at the same time we make the world trade on the dollar. So at the same time that we get rid of liquidity, and then we turn around and make the world facilitate trade with a non-liquid asset. It's probably the first time in history. I mean, other than the ledger system that we were on before cash, I guess you would say, because it used to be that everything was in the books. Every single dollar you made, every single tax you paid, every single thing you owed, everything was on these books, and you get these tally sticks. And we got rid of that a couple hundred years ago when we got on the cash system, which is actually right before the United States was created. Some could say the United States was created to get rid of all of the patriarchies that were opposed to this international faction, to have everybody fleeing to America to get rid of this system. Let's go to this place where you can get cash and be a sovereign citizen and have gold and this and that. Some could say that it was created. They got rid of the tally system for this new cash system so they can separate the world to bring it back together. It seems like a running theme. So, who knows? Our forefathers told us that we have this is how we can have our sovereignty, and this is how we can keep it if we're not willing to remain on the tit of the government. And it's really kind of up to everybody to retain that sovereignty. As soon as we say, you owe me this, and I need, my bills paid, and they look for handouts, we automatically give away sovereignty. Universal basic income automatically gives up sovereignty. So these utility tokens automatically give up sovereignty. If you cannot be off the grid, if these utility tokens if this SEC case means you cannot be off the grid, everybody's tapped in. You can't leave anywhere. And this goes back to this whole, because this is important too. The Supreme Court is telling the EPA that they have to run everything up through Congress is very, very important, because we see this carbon tax, okay? And if everything is tapped into all these utility tokens, and they know your electric bill is tapped in, they know exactly how much carbon everybody is using. This goes back to carbon tax. This goes back to the Green New Deal. This goes back to rolling blackouts. And then everybody being on the grid, and that's the only way you could facilitate anything. You cannot buy or sell or trade anything without the mark. That's what all of this goes back to. I don't know. We'll see. That's the SEC case. That's the petrodollar. That's sanctions. Depending on this SEC case, SEC versus Ripple. Not even depending. This is the case that's pending the collapse of the dollar. Once again, I'm no financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything based on what I'm saying. But this is the SEC case, and this is Ripple's stance in it. This is everybody involved, and I'll just stay up to date on it and keep y'all posted. All right, till next time.